According to the Quran, its text was revealed by Allah. Hence its text should be perfect. In this presentation, we try to answer the question: is its text free of errors? The Quran was assembled under the close supervision of the caliphs, but it reached us stuffed with many mistakes, despite his verses pretending that nothing was omitted in it, as was said in the Surah Al-An'am, number 6, in verse 38. We show some examples of these errors thereafter. Point 25. Scientific errors, for example that the birds are poised in the emptiness of the sky, and nothing hold them, except Allah, as was said in Surah Al-Nahl, number 16, in verse 79, the Quran ignores the viscosity of air. Point 26, or that the lump, embryo, was created bones, then the bones got covered with flesh, as was said in Surah Al-Mu'minun, number 23, in verse 14, the Quran ignores the chain of events in the formation of the fetus. Point 27, or that Allah holds the sky from falling to the ground, as was said in Surat Al-Hajj, number 22, in verse 65, the Quran ignores the composition of the sky and the work of gravity. Point 28, or that the earth is a bed, a flat land, as was said in Surah Al-Naba, number 78, in verse 6, the Quran ignores it as a sphere. Point 29, geographical errors, describing imaginary places, and insisting erroneously that they exist on the surface of the earth. For example, that the guy with two horns reached the sunset of the sun, and found the sun disappearing in a muddy source, as was said in Surah Al-Kahf, number 18, in verse 86, the whole earth was mapped, and no such place was found. Point 30, or that the guy with two horns built an embankment between two mountain banks with iron and melting copper, which the Quran pretends it was a mercy of Allah, as was said in Surah Al-Kahf, number 18, in verses 95 to 98, and, again, this embankment was not found anywhere on earth. Point 31, calculus errors, for example in Surah Al-Nisa, number 4, in the verse 11, the Quran says, Allah commands you as regards your children's inheritance to the male, like the portion of two females. If they are only daughters, 2 or more, their share is 2/3 of what he left, and if only one, her share is half. For each parent, a 1/6 share of what he left if he left children. And in verse 12, the Quran says, with respect to the wives, but if you leave a child, they get 1/8 of that which he left. How do you divide the inheritance if the man who died had 2 daughters, 2/3 of the inheritance, 2 parents, 2/6 of the inheritance, and a wife, 1/8 of the inheritance? Point 32, it contains mistakes in beliefs and divinities. For example, the inclusion of the Virgin Mary in the Christian Trinity, as was said in Surah Al-Ma'idah, number 5, verse 116, and when Allah will say, O Isa, Jesus, son of Maryam, Mary, did you say unto men, worship me and my mother, as 2 gods besides Allah? While the truth seems to be, that some Christians pray and request, only, the intercession of Mary, and also the intercession of the martyrs of Jesus, just as some of our Muslim brothers pray and request, only, the intercession of Muhammad. Maryam is the closest woman to Jesus, just as Khadija, Fatima, and Aisha were the closest women to Muhammad. The Quran contains contradictory verses, and hence, it is not reasonable for us to think that Allah revealed it. Would Allah not know what He wants? Point 33, for example, is it that they ask you, O Muhammad, about the spoils of war? Say, the spoils are for Allah and the Messenger. So fear Allah, and adjust all matters of difference among you, and obey Allah and His Messenger, if you are believers. As was said in Surah Al-Anfal, number 8, verse 1. Or is it that, whatever you gained, verily 1/5 of it is assigned to Allah, and to His Messenger. As was said in Surah Al-Anfal, number 8, verse 41. Point 34, is it that, there is no compulsion in religion? As was said in Surah Al-Baqarah, number 2, verse 256. Or, but if they turn renegades, seize them and slay them, wherever you find them. As was said in Surah Al-Nisa, number 4, verse 89. Or, fight to kill those who believe not in Allah, not in the last day, do not hold that forbidden, which has been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger, nor acknowledge the religion of truth, as was said in Surah Al-Tawbah, number 9, verse 29. The Quran pretends it is written in a clear Arabic language, without crookedness. It was said in Surah Yusuf, number 12, verse 2, we sent it down as an Arabic Quran, hoping you will get wise, and in Surah Al-Ra'd, number 13, verse 37, thus have we revealed it to be a judgment of authority in Arabic. And in Surah Al-Nahl, number 16 verse 103, while this is Arabic, pure and clear. And in Surah Taha, number 20, verse 113, thus, we sent it down as an Arabic Quran, and in Surah Al-Shu'ara, number 26, verse 195, in clear Arabic language. And Surah Al-Zumar, number 39, verse 28, a Quran in Arabic language without crookedness. And in Surah Fussilat, number 41, verse 3, a book, whereof the verses are explained in detail, a Quran in Arabic, for people who understand. And in Surah Fussilat, number 41, verse 44, had we sent this as a Quran in a language other than Arabic, they would have said, why are not its verses explained in detail? A non-Arabic text, and an Arab messenger, and in Surah Al-Jawra, number 42, verse 7, and thus have we revealed to you an Arabic Quran, that you may warn the mother of cities and those who are around it. And in Surah Al-Zukhruf, number 43, verse 3, we made it an Arabic Quran, hoping you will get wise. And in Surah Al-Ahqaf, number 46, verse 12, and before this, was the book of Moses, as a guide and a mercy, and this book confirms it, in the Arabic tongue. Except that it contains numerous linguistic errors, that Islamic scholars know as science, of the strange in the Quran. Jalaluddin al-Suyuti recorded it in his book, Perfection in the Sciences of the Quran. This book contains 80 chapters. They are named first type, second type, and so on until type 80. The chapter about the strangeness in the Quran is named type 36, which is chapter 36. Point 35, Suyuti informed us in this book, in his chapter on knowledge of its strangeness 36, that Ibn Abbas said that he understood all of the Quran except 4 words, Ghislin in Surah Al-Haqsa, number 69, verse 36, Wahanana in Surah Maryam, number 19, verse 13, Awa in Surah Hud, number 11, verse 75, and Al-Rakim in Surah Al-Kahf, number 18, verse 9. If, after extended studies, Ibn Abbas did not find out the meaning of some words of the Quran, how can one say it is written in a clear Arabic language? Point 36, in the same chapter, Al-Suyuti listed more than 600 expressions, in the Quran, that Ibn Abbas explained to his Arab Muslims brothers, because they were not understanding them. Hence, if the Arab Muslims themselves do not understand the words found in the Quran, how can it be said that the Quran is written in a clear Arabic language? And in the same book, in the chapter on what came from another language than Arabic, 38, he teaches us that Ibn Abbas, and others from the first Muslims, explained some words of the Quran as being Persian, Ethiopian, Nabatean, or so. The scholars differed about that explanation, coming from the first Muslims. Hence, they looked for a way to explain the following verses. Verse 4 in Surah Ibrahim, number 14, and we sent not a messenger, except with the language of his people, in order that he makes it clear for them. Then Allah misleads whom He wills, and guides whom He wills. And He is the Almighty, the All-Wise. Verse 44 in Surah Fussilat, number 41, had we sent this as a Quran in a language other than Arabic, they would have said, why are not its verses explained in detail? A non-Arabic text, and an Arab messenger, and verse 2 in Surah Yusuf, number 12, we sent it down as an Arabic Quran, hoping you will get wise. Al-Suyuti tells us that, many scholars agreed that a mixing of the languages had happened, and consequently, the Arabs, Persians, and Abyssinia, got to speak with the same words. And that the words outside the Arabic language, become Arabic language if the Arabs pronounce them. Finally, he states that the one who say the word is Arabic, is right, and the one who says not Arabic, is right. This seems to us to be a wrong thought, because the mixing of languages happened after, and not before, the Islamic conquest. The mixing was non-existent in the time of the first Muslims, and this is why Ibn Abbas explained some words as being non-Arabic. Also, the words of Quran in Surah Taha, number 20, verse 113, thus, we sent it down as an Arabic Quran, gets to be void of meaning, if we follow the reasoning of Al-Suyuti. Because he says, the one who say the word is Arabic is right, and the one who says not Arabic is right. Point 37, hence, how can one say that Quran was revealed in clear Arabic, as was said in Surah Al-Shu'ara, number 26, verse 195, if the verse 113 in Surah Taha number 26, thus, we sent it down as an Arabic Quran, got without meaning? He then lists around 100 foreign words from the Quran, that do not have a radical in Arabic language. For example, he explains that, Al-Taghout, is a priest in Eritrean language. And Al-Sirat, is the road in the Byzantine language. And Taha, means, hey man, in the Nabatean language. And Al-Sundus means, a thin silk garment, in Persian language. And Jahannam, hell, is foreign, of Persian and Hebraic extraction, and its origin is Kanam. Point 38, hence, how can you say about the Quran that, it is a book, whereof the verses are explained in detail, a Quran in Arabic, for people who understand? As was said in Surah Fussilat, number 41, verse 3. The scholar Sami Awad al-Dib, listed more than 2,500 linguistic errors in the Quranic text. He classified them in 11 types, for example, words whose meaning is obscure, while Quran pretends to be written in a clear Arabic language, as was said in Surah Al-Shu'ara, number 26, verse 195. Errors in the writing of the letters or the accents, in some words of Quran, which renders the word void of true meaning, in the Arabic language. Copy errors leading to false or wrong words, and loss of a correct meaning for the corresponding sentence. Grammatical errors. Contradiction in the same sentence, or in the following sentence. Repeated lack of information. Point 39, if none can change the words of Allah, as was said in Surah Al-An'am, number 6, verse 115, and if Allah is knowledgeable and capable of everything, then it is impossible that Allah does not master the understanding of Arabic language, and the knowledge of its grammatical rules. It is also impossible that Gabriel recited what Allah didn't say. Then, how Quran can be the word of Allah, and contain all these errors? And who are the ones who introduced crookedness in that text?